This is the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Welcome into our ACC Digital Network studios. Tom Werme, along with former Wake Forest quarterback Riley Skinner. The huge, colossal news of the day is that Notre Dame will be joining the ACC. Now, as far as football is concerned, it is a unique partnership. 5 football games against ACC opponents. So that is the situation. Notre Dame and all other sports joining the ACC. Football, 5 games during the course of that Notre Dame schedule. So, Riley Skinner, your initial impressions?
My initial impressions, longevity of the ACC and a huge step forward for the conference. My hat's off to John Swofford for organizing this entire thing. The fact that Notre Dame has joined this conference, take a step back from football. Let's just think the conference in general. To have a storied program like this join your conference, become the 15th team, just is going to do leaps and bounds going forward for the conference.
So we are just moments away from the announcement, which will come from Chapel Hill on the UNC campus at Kenan Stadium. The Atlantic Coast Conference Council of Presidents will have a news conference, and when that begins, we will take you to that news conference for this groundbreaking announcement. Again, Notre Dame joining the ACC. We are expecting to hear from ACC Commissioner John Swofford, as well as Reverend John Jenkins, the Notre Dame president, and Jack Swarbrick, the vice president and director of athletics at Notre Dame as well. So again, that news conference just moments away from the North Carolina campus in Chapel Hill. And again, the term that is being put out by the conference and by Notre Dame, this is a unique partnership where all of the sports will move from the Big East to the ACC. And then that football arrangement, Notre Dame currently with its independent status, but 5 ACC teams will be on that Notre Dame schedule. Currently, there are 3 and Pittsburgh, so there won't be a whole lot of shuffling as far as Notre Dame is concerned to accommodate that unique partnership. But again, the confluence of the ACC and Notre Dame, it really is a monumental day in college sports.
It is, and it's like you said, it's a unique relationship with the ACC, almost sort of a hybrid into the conference. But when you look at some of the teams that have had Notre Dame on their schedule, the game is circled early on and years before they even play it. I know, talking to Jim Grobe and the staff at Wake Forest, when they played them this year and last year, it was something that they had looked forward to as a university, as a community for a long time. And to think that that's going to be a part of many teams' programs going forward, playing Notre Dame year in and year out, is very exciting to see what the conference is going to look like.
Again, that news conference coming up in just moments from Kenan Stadium on the UNC campus, and there you get a live look at the current situation there. We are waiting to hear from ACC Commissioner John Swofford, the Reverend John Jenkins, the Notre Dame president, and Jack Swarbrick, the vice president and director of athletics at Notre Dame, on this huge announcement. The ACC Council of Presidents holding this news conference, and the statement that they're coming out with right now: we are committed to keeping the Atlantic Coast Conference a vibrant and competitive league dedicated to ensuring the appropriate balance of academics, athletics, and integrity. And to match all those things up, Notre Dame could not be a better match for the ACC.
Exactly. All the cornerstones of the conference and how this conference is aligned, Notre Dame fits in perfectly. And the best part about it, it's just going to add that much more of the national presence to the conference. Obviously, there's not many programs that have a national brand. Notre Dame is one of them, and ACC hit a home run having them as part of the conference going forward.
And Commissioner Swofford has already released a statement saying our partnership with Notre Dame only strengthens this long-standing commitment. Notre Dame enhances the league's unique blend of public and private institutions that are international in scope. So the ACC that will already have 2 new schools come in next year with Syracuse and Pittsburgh, and now you add Notre Dame. So you'll have 15 teams. If you take the marquee sports with basketball, you'll have the 15-team league. And the balance of the Coastal and the Atlantic will maintain its integrity, but you'll also have Notre Dame coming in playing those 5 games. And those games, as you said, are going to have giant circles around them because you have such great competition in the ACC as it is, and then you bring in a program of such international scope and recognition in Notre Dame. It really is an incredible moment and a day that you need to mark down on the calendar in the history of college sports and in the ACC.
And you just see everything changing going forward with 15 teams now in the ACC. With Pitt and Syracuse, like you said, I kind of feel bad for them a little bit, the fact that Notre Dame is now stealing the spotlight a little bit, but I love the way that Notre Dame is going to fit into the conference, and you have to think maybe eventually there will be 16 teams, but that's down the road. We don't need to talk about that. I think that what the ACC is going to get, they're going to get media coverage as well. You think about the TV contracts and all of that goes into college sports, and now adding Pitt and Syracuse up in the Northeast, you've got Notre Dame essentially in the Midwest, all the way down to Miami. You're covering almost the entire East Coast of the United States with ACC sports from basketball to football to baseball, and this is a huge day for the conference. And again, my hat's off to John Swofford. Obviously, Notre Dame and the institution has a lot of respect for what this conference means and what this conference stands for and looks like going forward, not just athletically, but academically.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reaction on Twitter, as you might imagine, to this enormous announcement. We start with a note from Jimbo Fisher, who is the head coach for Florida State and already 2-0. When Notre Dame plays here, it's going to be a wonderful and great opponent with great tradition. And I think it really goes without saying, when Notre Dame comes to town, and Jimbo Fisher underscored that point right there, we said that teams would be looking forward to the game. He's already looking forward to the game. And he made it known on Twitter. So you can feel the excitement and the energy start to crackle through the conference with a team like Notre Dame coming in.
I can't wait to see what the schedule looks like when they finally say who they're going to play when, because you think about a Florida State team, a Clemson team, a Virginia Tech that historically don't play Notre Dame, to play them year in and year out. It's a fresh rivalry that could really give us a lot of excitement, a lot of huge storylines, big games, and just that national stage. I can't wait for the schedules to come out.
Another tweet coming out as well from Brian Gregory, the Georgia Tech head basketball coach. The leadership of the ACC has done it again. I think they hit a home run. So using a baseball analogy, go even further. This is a grand slam. This is out of the park. This is completely out of the park with Notre Dame joining the conference. And I think a lot of people might think, well, down the road, might they join the ACC in football as well? They are pretty solid in their independent status right now, but they have outlined a situation if they were to take that step sometime in the future, and it might be the distant future at this point, but if they were to take that step, they would become a member of the ACC. But right now, again, they are terming this the unique partnership. All of the other sports join the ACC and bring such great color and passion to the conference as well. And then you've got those 5 games that will be on the schedule for Notre Dame against ACC opponents.
Yeah, well, with the ACC and the way that that Notre Dame is coming in, you want to say you hope they join the ACC down the road, but let's just think right now. This is a win-win both for Notre Dame and for the ACC. And if they end up coming into the conference down the road, so be it. That's even better for the ACC, just to really culminate the entire conference and possibly add a 16th team. But for right now, not just football, every athletic sport throughout the ACC should be very fired up and very happy that this got arranged.
Yeah, we want to hear from you as well, as far as your Twitter comments, concerns, questions, anything you want to add about Notre Dame coming into the ACC at the ACCDN, and you can contact us and we'll talk more about this amazing announcement with Notre Dame coming into the conference. Again, we are just moments away from a news conference on the campus of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, at Kenan Stadium, the football facility on that campus. We are expecting to hear from ACC Commissioner John Swofford, the Reverend John Jenkins, as you get a live look, Notre Dame President John Jenkins, and Jack Swarbrick, the Vice President and Director of Athletics. We are being told that John Swofford, the ACC Commissioner, has entered the room. It has been a very eventful and newsworthy couple of months for the ACC, with the addition of Syracuse and Pittsburgh for next season. Now Notre Dame will be joining the conference. We will get more detail from the ACC Commissioner John Swofford, who has entered the room. You are looking live on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday, into the news conference. This completely changes the landscape of college sports and athletics and academics, which are all key factors in this decision. The Atlantic Coast Conference Council of Presidents citing academics and how Notre Dame would enhance and bring a great level of commitment to academic and athletics. And in such a program with international notoriety, all it does is raise the profile of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And again, we are looking live at Chapel Hill, where the news conference will commence in just moments, Riley.
And one thing that we haven't even mentioned is the recruiting. I mean, what this does for recruiting for coaches, to add the possibility or the potential in 2 years, you're telling high school kids that they're going to be playing at Notre Dame in that storied stadium, it makes your sell that much easier. And I think not only just football, I know we're focused on football right now, at least I am, but you got to take a step back and think what this is going to do for the conference as a whole. And when I first heard about this, my number one thought was recruiting is going to skyrocket. And I bet every coach is sitting in their office with a big smile right now, knowing that that just adds to the plethora of benefits that come from being a part of the ACC and choosing to play in the Atlantic Coast Conference over other conferences in the country.
The ACC ultimately to grow to 15 teams. That'll be in basketball and all other sports as well. The 14-team alignment with Pittsburgh and Syracuse coming in next year for football with the Coastal and Atlantic divisions. But that is the situation. Notre Dame will be joining the ACC, and the Golden Domers will be coming into the Atlantic Coast Conference. You know, there's another note that the ACC presidents certainly want to get across as far as solidarity is concerned. The decision to bring Notre Dame into the conference was unanimous. They want to keep the conference intact. They have increased the exit fee as well to $50 million. So they want to maintain the integrity of the conference and the current alignment as Notre Dame and Brian Kelly brings his football program into the fold as well. And look who we show the highlights again, Wake Forest. Wouldn't you know that, Riley?
And a great game last year. I mean, one that will go down in the books as one of the great games that came through BB&T Field. Unfortunately, Wake came out on the losing end of that, but that's just a little taste of what's to come in the future years. And I think we're going to see a lot of history made when ACC teams go to South Bend and when Notre Dame comes here as well.
Yeah, these 5 games that Notre Dame will play against opponents out of the ACC. We've talked about it and hit on these points, but there is no way to tell the impact that these games are going to be. It's going to be huge. Just how big is it going to be when you travel to Notre Dame, when you host the Irish? How incredible it's going to be. And again, the breaking news, Notre Dame will be joining the ACC, and those 5 football games, that unique partnership that will involve ACC opponents, they are going to be monumental on the Notre Dame campus and all the ACC campuses as well.
Well, they are, and I can speak for Wake Forest because they came to Winston-Salem last year, and to see what that did to the game day atmosphere, to the restaurants around campus, to the fans' excitement, to the tailgating. I mean, it impacts your entire community more than you can imagine just when that team enters your city. And the fact that that's going to happen 5 games to 5 teams in the ACC years going forward, it's hard to really put a price tag on what it's going to do for the conference. But for right now, we can only sit back and hear what they have to say about it.
Yeah, Riley, you talked about your first impressions when you heard the news, and you naturally thought about football, being a former Wake Forest quarterback and graduating in 2009. But the things that I thought of were history and tradition. And isn't it ironic that in the 60th season of ACC football, as we celebrate the 60th year of Atlantic Coast Conference football, that these announcements were being made, preceding this Notre Dame addition to the conference, Pittsburgh and Syracuse, but the history and tradition of Notre Dame football. The first name that comes to my mind, Knute Rockne, the old black and white films, firing up those incredible national championship teams of the 20s and the 30s. And it's the history and tradition of that uniform and that name, Irish, and that logo. And don't forget that fight song as well. That is all coming to the ACC and will be woven in the fabric of the ACC teams as they welcome Notre Dame to their campus and also travel to Notre Dame as well.
They've got 13 national championships, 7 Heisman Trophy winners, and an NCAA record 96 consensus All-Americans. That's a lot coming into one conference. And like you said, it brings a whole nother level of history and tradition that the ACC already has, and it's just adding on to the ACC's presence throughout the entire country. So, again, I don't really know what else to say other than I'm excited. I think every athletic department, every sports team is excited. Again, John Swofford did a magnificent job of bringing these three teams in.
Again, if you were just joining us here on the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday, I'm Tom Werme, along with former Wake Forest quarterback Riley Skinner. The breaking news of the day is that Notre Dame will be joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. It is a unique partnership. We want to get that term across because the situation is that in all other sports outside of football, Notre Dame will be joining the ACC. As far as football is concerned, 5 games, 5 opponents on that Notre Dame schedule, this will be the arrangement, will be ACC opponents. And this year they have 3 plus Pittsburgh anyway, so they're already on that track. But again, to fulfill the complement of teams, it'll be 5 games against ACC opponents. And in just moments, on the campus of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, there will be a news conference. It has been called by the Atlantic Coast Council of Presidents, who unanimously voted to add Notre Dame to the conference. You are looking live at the news conference at Kenan Stadium, the football facility in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where the Tar Heels play their home games. But we are expecting to hear from ACC Commissioner John Swofford, who we were told has come into the room. I'm sure he's sharing pleasantries and greetings with all the dignitaries and all the media members who are on hand in Chapel Hill. But we are expecting to hear from Commissioner John Swofford, the Reverend John Jenkins, who is the Notre Dame president and has been so since 2005, and then Jack Swarbrick, the vice president and director of athletics, who has held that position since 2008. We may hear from other dignitaries and luminaries as well, but again, John Swofford, the ACC commissioner, the Notre Dame president, Reverend John Jenkins, and Jack Swarbrick, the vice president and director of athletics at Notre Dame, all scheduled to speak and talk about this groundbreaking announcement where Notre Dame will be joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. Just a note put out by Atlantic Coast Conference Commissioner John Swofford, the ACC was founded on the cornerstones of balancing academics, athletics, and integrity. Our partnership with Notre Dame only strengthens this long-standing commitment. Notre Dame enhances the league's unique blend of public and private institutions that are international in scope. The collective alumni and fan bases cover the entire country with exceptionally strong roots up and down the Atlantic coast. And Riley and I spoke about this, how the footprint of the ACC continues to increase and continues to have such a high profile nationally. There's such great tradition and history in the ACC as it is, and then you add a program like Notre Dame, which has been on the national landscape for so long. It just takes this conference to a new level, a new stratosphere really for the ACC. And this is a history-making day. We are just moments away from that news conference in Chapel Hill at Kenan Stadium, the football facility at North Carolina. But again, the history and tradition will be enhanced by the addition of Notre Dame as it comes into the ACC. And what is the biggest thing that the addition of the football program will be for Notre Dame? Riley, we'll get your comments on that in just a moment, but we do have activity at the podium at our live set at Chapel Hill. So let's now join the news conference at North Carolina.
First of all, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. This is truly a historic moment for the Atlantic Coast Conference. With me here today are members of the ACC Council of Presidents as we are concluding our annual fall meeting that this year was held here in Chapel Hill. I'm joined on the dais by University of North Carolina Chancellor Holden Thorpe, the current chair of our Council of Presidents, as well as Clemson University President Jim Barker and Wake Forest University President Nathan Hatch. On behalf of the ACC Council of Presidents, it is my distinct pleasure to announce Notre Dame as the 15th member of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And with us today from the University of Notre Dame are President Father John Jenkins and Vice President and Director of Athletics Jack Swarbrick. welcome to you both. The ACC was founded on the cornerstones of balancing academics, athletics, and integrity. And the addition of Notre Dame only strengthens this long-standing commitment that this league has. Academically, Notre Dame enhances the league's unique blend of public and private institutions that are international in scope. As an example of the ACC's future 15-member league, 11 schools rank among the top 58 institutions in the recently released 2013 U.S. News and World Report survey of America's best colleges. That is more than any other conference also competing at the highest level athletically. In terms of athletics, the Irish have marquee programs that boast great tradition and great success. In addition, the collective alumni and fan bases of our conference will become even stronger while covering the entire country with exceptionally strong roots up and down the Atlantic coast. The ACC's Council of Presidents has done a terrific job throughout this process, and I'd like to thank them for their solidarity, their vision, their professionalism, and their diligence in getting us to this point today. I would also like to acknowledge and thank the membership committee, our 444 committee, that is made up of 4 presidents, athletic directors, and faculty representatives. Again, let me say how pleased we are to have the University of Notre Dame join the Atlantic Coast Conference. This is indeed a monumental day in the history of our league. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Chancellor Holden Thorpe, the chair of the ACC Council of Presidents, to the podium for a few remarks. Chancellor?
Thank you, John. As John said, I'm Holden Thorpe, and I'm the Chancellor of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and also this year serving as the Chair of the Council of Presidents for the Atlantic Coast Conference, and we've been delighted to host our meeting here the last couple of days, and this is indeed an exceptional day for the Atlantic Coast Conference. Father Jenkins and Jack, we are so glad to have you with us, and on behalf of my colleagues, welcome. We are delighted to have Notre Dame join the league, whose mission embodies the rich tradition and culture of the ACC. I would like to take this opportunity to also thank President Jim Barker and Nathan.
The University of Notre Dame is extraordinarily proud to join this great athletic conference composed of such outstanding institutions of higher education. I want to personally thank Chancellor Thorpe, John Swafford, President Nathan Hatch, and President Jim Barker, and all the ACC presidents for allowing us to continue traditions in football that go back nearly a century while being a part of this great conference. You know, at Notre Dame, athletics are important in themselves, and also through our history have allowed us to enrich the institution as a whole. Our partnership with the superb institutions of the ACC will enhance greatly the University of Notre Dame as a whole, and Notre Dame is fully committed to enhancing the ACC and its member institutions. Thank you very much, and I'd like to introduce someone who's worked very hard and very skillfully to bring us to this day, our Director of Athletics, Jack Swarbrick.
I'm not sure I could imagine a more appropriate setting for this announcement than this venue. In my first year as a Director of Athletics at Notre Dame, we played here. And as I, in the pregame period, walked campus with my family, I had not visited here before, so we took the opportunity to walk around. I was struck by how much the atmosphere was like it was at our home games, how welcoming people were as they identified us as visitors and part of the Notre Dame family. It's that welcoming nature, it's that same approach toward athletics and its role in a university that makes us so pleased to be here today. Sports has always played a very specific role at Notre Dame. It has two functions. One is to contribute to the education of students, and the other is to promote the university. This partnership helps us do both very effectively. By joining such a prestigious group of universities who share our commitment to athletics as an educational vehicle, not as something secondary to the mission of education, but as something core to it, we will further the education of our student athletes. And by being part of a conference with such a perfect geographic fit for us, we are able to effectively promote our university. For example, in the next 5 years, in part because of this great partnership, we'll be able to be in 10 of the 11 largest cities in America with our football program to help promote our university. And that's what we think it should do, promote the educational mission. The competitive result is also great. I met this morning with our coaches and informed them for the first time of what would happen, and their reaction was very positive. Coach Bray, our head basketball coach, who's very familiar with this part of the world, has joined us today. And what they were especially excited about was the competitive implications for them. I think unquestionably, in a host of sports, this is the best athletic conference in the country, and we will only make it better in that regard. Importantly, this is a story of moving to something great, not away from something. We are very thankful for the opportunity to have been a member of the Big East. We will continue to be a committed member during the stay in that conference, and it has been a good home for us. But for the reasons I stated, this creates a new and exciting opportunity for us to advance even further, to serve the mission of athletics at Notre Dame. And in that regard, we are very thankful to this conference and its leadership. To Presidents Thorpe and Baker and Hatch, who played such an important role in making this possible. Special thanks to Commissioner Swafford. He and I have spent a lot of time together in the past 2 years. We're going to have to pick out China pretty soon, I think, with all the BCS meetings we attended. And it was a natural byproduct of the relationship we built through that process that these discussions began. And special thanks from my perspective to the leadership of our university. University presidents would always be rather doing something other than athletics, but Father Jenkins has been such a great partner to me in working through the difficult issues related to all of this. And to him, our executive leadership, and especially our Board of Trustees, I say thank you. On behalf of the coaches and student athletes of the University of Notre Dame, we thank you and give you our commitment to be a great member of this great conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Thank you, Jack. I feel like I've got, as a commissioner, the best group of presidents that any commissioner in this country could have. They're terrific to work with. They obviously have vision. They have strength. They have wisdom. And I'm going to call one of them up to speak with you that's had a great deal to do with these discussions. But before I do so, let me also acknowledge and introduce President Charles Steger from Virginia Tech, who is with us, and President Eric Barron of Florida State University, who is still with us. During these discussions, there were two presidents that spent a great deal of time on this. We're in a great deal of discussions with me. We're in discussions at times with Father Jenkins and with Jack Swarbrick, and what an incredible job that they did. And I'd like to ask Nathan Hatch, the president of Wake Forest University, to come up and offer remarks. He and Jim Barker were just absolutely outstanding during this process. President Hatch?
Thank you, John. I have had a distinct and privileged history with deep roots both in the Atlantic Coast Conference and with the University of Notre Dame. The Hatch family actually has roots 15 miles south of here, Pittsburgh, that go back to the 18th century. My father's a Duke graduate, and I grew up in the heart of ACC country. But I was also privileged to serve for a number of years as faculty member, dean, and provost at Notre Dame. And it's so why, on a personal level, I think this coming together, having Notre Dame as a new member of the ACC, is so terrific. And let me just mention two things. As has been said, Notre Dame and the institutions of the Atlantic Coast Conference believe in the balance of academics, athletics, and integrity. We believe in doing athletics right. We're committed to that. We're committed to the well-being of student athletes. And together, I think we can even do a better job towards that end. The other thing is academics. We are universities, after all. And Notre Dame, like the members of the Atlantic Coast Conference, are serious about becoming better universities. And I think the addition of Notre Dame will help our academic collaborative as we together try to say, how can we help each other in our important missions on behalf of students. So on behalf of the ACC family, its institutions, and its many fans, let me welcome the family of the Fighting Irish, and particularly Father Jenkins. Welcome indeed.
If you could raise your hand, we will get to as many as we can. Please be reminded that there is a teleconference, and we will have some time after this is over. If you could help us out by directing your question to a specific individual up on the dais, as well as giving us your name and affiliation, it would be greatly appreciated. We're going to start right in the front with Aaron Beard. Wait for the microphone, please.
This is for Commissioner Swafford. There's been a lot of discussion over the years about the importance of full membership to the ACC. So I guess how tough of a decision was it to sort of, I guess, go against that tradition, I guess?
Well, in the end, I don't know that it was tough, but I do think it's certainly significant, Aaron, in the sense that we are in our 60th year as a conference, and we have always been an all-in, if you will, membership. And in more recent years, we've discussed this with a changing landscape out there in intercollegiate athletics, a changing world. And Jim Barker, I think, said it best in one of our discussions about this and talking about that change. What was best 20 years ago isn't necessarily best in today's world. And we talked about crossing that threshold and took that very seriously in our discussions. And as I said, this was not the first time we've had those discussions. So I think that transition in thinking evolved over a period of time. I had a number of conversations with Gene Corrigan, my predecessor, about that, and whom I have great respect for. And of course, Gene has the distinction of having been the athletic director at Notre Dame as well as the commissioner of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And so I think it just came through our internal discussions as now's the time, and this is a partnership that is a win-win. And good for both parties, and the time had come to cross that threshold.
If I could just kind of piggyback on that, the University of Notre Dame has an identity that was formed over a long period, from the days of Rockney. We have more fans in Massachusetts and New York and Ohio than in Indiana. We're proud to be in Indiana. We didn't feel we could give that up without losing our identity in some way. And we're just deeply grateful to the ACC, who have been such great partners in recognizing that. But I just want to say emphatically and clearly, that aside, we're all in the ACC. We're committed to this conference for athletic purposes, but even more deeply, as Nathan Hatch articulated, for the affinity of institutions and the affinity of values that exist. So on behalf of Notre Dame, I want everyone to understand we're deeply committed to the ACC.
John, one of the main issues of the all-in situation is the television contracts, the various agreements that are obviously going to go through a certain year. Do you revisit it in 2015 or 16, both in terms of television contracts and Notre Dame possibly ever coming in as a football member?
In terms of the television contracts, yes, we will revisit that. We've had some preliminary conversations with our television partners as would be prudent to do so. We do think that this arrangement will enhance our television product and has value with our television product. Notre Dame obviously will remain with their television contractual agreements for football and for hockey, but in all other sports will be a full participant in the Atlantic Coast Conference from a TV standpoint. They will keep their football television revenue. The ACC will keep its television revenue. We'll be playing in football 5 games every season. Rotating 1 year, 3 would be ACC home games, 2 would be Notre Dame home games, and then reversing that the following year. So that will come into play. So I don't know. We will finalize that as we move forward, with our discussions with our television partner.
Joe Giglio, the News and Observer here in Raleigh. John, is there a timetable for this? Obviously, you got Pitt and Syracuse coming in next year, and then as long as Notre Dame's not a full football member, is there a need to add a 16th team to the league?
There is no need to add a 16th team to the league, and there's no intention of doing so. In fact, from a practical standpoint, it really is illogical. And by that I mean, we'll be 15 members. In basketball, we'll have a 15-team playing lineup. We're not in divisions in basketball. In football, we'll be 14 with 2 even divisions. Obviously, if we brought a 16th member in, then that causes an imbalance in our football divisions. So we will be a 15-team league. Timetable is really up to Notre Dame in the Big East Conference. As we said and did with Syracuse and Pitt, we'll respect whatever is appropriate in terms of Notre Dame's departure from the Big East, and we will welcome them as soon as they're able to join us.
Yeah, the timetable is a few years out. What is it, Jack?
Well, it'd be under the current arrangement would be the 15-16 season. But we'll meet our obligations to the Big East and have discussions about whether there's any opportunity to accelerate that.
Yeah.
You mentioned about being all in. Does the new exit fee, does that apply to Notre Dame, and when does that go into effect?
It does apply to Notre Dame, and it goes into effect immediately.
Kevin Conley, Fox 8 in Greensboro. John, is there a framework in place for them to join in football in terms of like like a trigger, like if the BCS changes the playoff format, is that a trigger that is sort of automatically will have set up where Notre Dame will join in football?
Kevin, I'm sorry. I was trying to find you, and I didn't hear the entirety of the question. Do you mind asking it again?
Is there a trigger or a framework in place of, like, if the BCS changes, if the college football playoff ever expands, that Notre Dame will automatically join in football?
No, there is not. You know, I think what you've heard from Notre Dame is that they would assess their situation once the postseason football was clearer, and that's what Jack and I spent a lot of time together trying to do over the last 6 months or so with the help of a lot of other people. And now that is clear, I think that gave, you know, some definition to Notre Dame's future vision and the decisions they would want to make. But the answer to your question simply is no, there is no such thing.
Mark Armstrong with ABC 11 here in Raleigh-Durham as well. For Father Jenkins and Mr. Swarbrick, you're popular guys with other conferences too. Did this ever come close to fruition with another conference?
Well, I'll let Jack speak. I don't think there's out there a better situation than the situation we have. As I said, the ACC has allowed us to retain a tradition that's so central to our identity in football while we're joining a conference that athletically as well as academically fits Notre Dame perfectly. I just don't think there's a better option out there than the situation we have. It wasn't a tough decision.
This is, I guess, for Jack. It is our chance, by the way, from Vilcom Interactive Media. The time frame is still out there, but has there been discussions about the distribution and how it'll differ between Notre Dame and the other schools not being a football member? And I guess it's for John as well.
The distribution being the
revenue distribution? Revenue distribution, yeah.
Well, as John indicated, we'll keep the revenue associated with our football and hockey broadcast agreements. We will otherwise have a member share of the non-football element of the ACCs. And for participation purposes, whether it's the NCAA basketball tournament or something else, we'll be like any other member.
How much less would it be than the full distribution for each school? Has that been determined?
Well, as I mentioned, in terms of football television revenues, the ACC stays in the ACC among the 12, soon to be 14 schools. And Notre Dame keeps their football revenue through NBC. When games are in South Bend or at a neutral site that is a Notre Dame home game, then you know, that's theirs. When a game is in an ACC stadium or a neutral site that we are hosting, then ESPN, because of our contractual arrangement with them, would have access to televise those games, and the revenue would remain in the ACC. In terms of basketball, basically the way this will work is that there will now be 15 shares. By agreement, we designate 80% of our television revenues to football, 20% to basketball. So Notre Dame will receive 1/15 of 20% for their basketball participation and Olympic sport participation.
Hi, from the Duke Chronicle. I was wondering if you think the arrangement with Notre Dame in football potentially paves the way for other schools to negotiate their own revenue deals in other sports, such as Duke and North Carolina in basketball?
I do not.
Looking to the future, how big is the hurdle for Notre Dame the financial hurdle for Notre Dame to be able to come into the ACC without suffering a financial penalty? How much does Notre Dame receive annually right now for its football rights? And what is the revenue per school for the football rights in the ACC? And while I have the mic, how will this affect the tournament schedule for basketball? How will that be lined up?
I can't speak to the first part of the question.
Yeah, relative to the first part, I'd just say this wasn't a financial decision. It's financially neutral for us, and we don't foresee that changing anytime in the future.
In terms of us, we'll be in discussions with our television partner because there's some games of value that will be added to our inventory there. And so I think there will be some enhancement to that. We'll have to, wait and see exactly what that will be. Obviously, we feel positively about that in terms of our analysis, and as I said earlier, how we look at that and evaluate it going forward. And in terms of the tournament, we're looking at with 14 members, we were looking at how to do the basketball tournament. It will require Wednesday games, and would have been 2. Now there will be 3. And in all likelihood, the top 4 seeds will receive byes.
John, how will the contract bowl, the Orange Bowl, be affected by this? And is there a scenario where the ACC would be playing against Notre Dame in such a bowl?
Good question. The way the bowl situation will work, and I think this is something very positive for both of us, another win-win. That's a part of the bigger picture win-win. The Notre Dame, and we're not through with the discussions on this, but in all probability, Notre Dame will be one of multiple potential participants on the opponent side of the Orange Bowl. The ACC will keep all of its Orange Bowl revenues as a contract game that comes straight to the ACC. It does not go into the BCS revenue sharing pot, so to speak. And the team that plays us has the same situation on the other side. So there is the possibility of an ACC Notre Dame Orange Bowl in addition to the 5 per season ACC Notre Dame football games. Notre Dame would keep all of any revenues that it generated from playing in any one of the other 5 BCS games. The ACC would keep its revenues from those games that go into the sharing pot, actually. Below the BCS, Notre Dame will be a part of the ACC Bowl lineup. And in that sense, will basically become an ACC team in our bowl structure and bowl lineup. There will be a provision in which for Notre Dame to be selected over an ACC team at the point of selection, another eligible ACC team, that Notre Dame would have to be ranked higher, equal to, or in the win column, be within 1 win of any ACC teams that are also eligible to be picked. So if an ACC team were 10-2 and Notre Dame were 8-4, they cannot be selected for that particular bowl at that point of selection. But if they had 9 wins, they would be eligible for the bowl picking to take Notre Dame.
John, how much do you think this just solidifies the ACC in terms of, quashing rumors that other schools might be interested in leaving?
Well, I think when you consider Notre Dame coming into the league and the attractiveness of that and the excitement that our schools have for that and what it brings tangibly as well as optically. And you combine that with what our presidents have done in terms of the exit fee, I don't know why there would be any rumors.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being with us.
You've been listening to the live news conference in Chapel Hill, North Carolina at Kenan Stadium, the football facility at North Carolina, where the announcement that Notre Dame will be joining the ACC. You heard from ACC Commissioner John Swofford and John Jenkins, the president of Notre Dame. You also heard from Vice President and Director of Athletics Jack Swarbrick from Notre Dame as well. And again, timestamp these words for this day in ACC history by Commissioner John Swofford as he took the podium. It is my distinct pleasure to announce Notre Dame as the 15th member of the Atlantic Coast Conference. Tom Werme and Riley Skinner here at the ACC Digital Network studios and the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Here were the things that stood out to me, Riley, as I went over the notes that I made listening to Father John Jenkins. He used things like all in, deeply committed, and this wasn't a tough decision. Wasn't a tough decision for the ACC, as well as all the presidents voted unanimously to have Notre Dame join the conference. Also, the educational standards, those were pointed out by Father John Jenkins as well, as that will just enhance and rise as far as the level of the ACC is concerned. And then Jack Swarbrick said it's a perfect geographical fit. And then the last thing that the commissioner outlined, you could see an Orange Bowl with an ACC team against Notre Dame. So a lot of things coming out of this news conference at Chapel Hill.
I think the two first things that you hit on is the academics and then the support from not only Notre Dame into the ACC, but ACC accepting Notre Dame in. The fact that Clemson, UNC, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, Florida State all had their presidents at this press conference really speaks volumes to their excitement and commitment to Notre Dame coming in. And academically, this is what the ACC is built upon, and what set them apart from other conferences is their academic standards. And so the fact that Notre Dame really molds perfectly into the ACC, it's just another reason why this is a brilliant move by John Swofford to bring Notre Dame in. And it's just an exciting day, like we've said already.
You heard Director of Athletics for Notre Dame, Jack Swarbrick, say this was not a financially motivated decision. This was the perfect fit, the best decision for Notre Dame to join the conference in all other sports in the ACC and then play that 5-game schedule, that unique partnership against ACC opponents down the road on that Notre Dame schedule.
The 5-game partnership is going to be pretty interesting to see how it plays out, and who plays them when and what years. But it's going to be a big revenue boost, obviously, for both the ACC teams and Notre Dame. And we talk about that they were a geographically great fit. They bring in I guess you can call it the Midwest viewers. But when you look at a Notre Dame team, they're a national team. They're not just bound to the Southeast, to the Northeast, to the Southwest, whatever it is. They're an independent team because they've got fans all over the country that'll watch them. And so when ACC teams are going to travel to Notre Dame to play, and if they're on that ABC schedule, they're going to have a national stage. And so I think the fact that they are going to be involved with the ACC and add that national brand to the already astounding brand of the ACC is just great.
As far as Notre Dame leaving the Big East, the Notre Dame officials said that the school season of 2015-2016, if they followed the bylaws that are established right now, would be the target date. But they also went on to say that that particular decision could be accelerated as well. And we did, in fact, see that happen with Syracuse and Pittsburgh, as those two schools will be joining the conference next year.
My initial gut is that's going to happen. When you make the announcement when you're leaving a conference, it's tough to still be fully committed to that original conference when you know in a year and a half, 2 years, you're going to be committed to another conference. And I think it's just a betterment for everybody to expedite that process. And if I was a betting man, I'd bet that they're going to expedite that process.
Yeah. There is more Twitter reaction coming in, and this one from Dick Vitale. ND to ACC, great move for the ACC. and Notre Dame. Control football, get away from chaos of the Big East. So that is Dick Vitale, who certainly has his finger on the pulse of not only college basketball, but college sports in general. And he uses the word chaos to get away from that as far as the Big East is concerned. Our news of the day we want to focus on is that Notre Dame is coming to the ACC. But the Twitter world, and specifically Dick Vitale, chiming in with that comment there.
He ended it with, there's been some wacky moves, but this is a good move by Notre Dame, and I think he's right. There's a lot of turmoil going on right now in the Big East, but for Notre Dame to make this move, I think it was a solid move for everybody, not just basketball, not just football, for all the athletic and universities and the educational implications all around. It was a great move.
Yeah, we're having Twitter responses come in as we speak. Current Duke guard Seth Curry is also chiming in on Twitter. The ACC schedule going to be a beast starting next year. Hashtag is Best Hoops Conference. So you bring Notre Dame potentially down the road, Pittsburgh and Syracuse coming in, and Seth Curry says the schedule will be a beast. Again, 15 teams. Once Notre Dame arrives as well, you'll play 15 teams in basketball because there is no coastal and Atlantic breakdown as far as divisions are concerned in basketball. But in football, you maintain that symmetry with Pittsburgh and Syracuse coming in to 14 teams, and then you add Notre Dame to the mix as well with those 5 football games against ACC opponents.
I think with basketball, it is going to be a beast of a conference. I agree with Seth Curry. And I think that's where there's a lot of disconnect between what's going on with fans' perceptions and what's really going on with the conference, saying they've got to have a 16th team. Well, they don't, as long as football-wise, Notre Dame stays independent. Because if they stay independent, then divisions are divided up evenly with 7 and 7, and then basketball, like you said, there's no division in basketball,
right.
So they can go through that tournament just fine with 15 teams. So right now there's not a need for a 16 team. So I think a lot of that can be put to bed for a little bit.
Right, and Commissioner Swafford talked about the basketball situation. There is more deliberations and decisions to be made, but he was talking about the top 4 teams getting byes at the tournament, and then you'd have to start games potentially on Wednesday. Those things will trickle down as the situation progresses and we finally get in on a target zone as far as when Notre Dame will join the ACC officially. But the announcement being made today in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. More reaction from Twitter. Mark Turgeon, the Maryland basketball coach. Terps, let's welcome Mike Bray and the Irish to the ACC. Looking forward to competing against them more regularly. So the ripples and the energy of the football part of this decision, but there's also a huge implication as far as basketball is concerned, and then you go right on down the line with all of the sports that Notre Dame will be involved in as it becomes a member of the ACC.
There's excitement everywhere. I don't think that's news to anybody. The fact that these teams get to play Notre Dame year in and year out, it just adds to the excitement of playing collegiate sports for Division I, for one of the best conferences in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Add a story program like Notre Dame, it's just icing on the cake. So huge implications here from all sports.
It is an exciting day. It's an amazing day, really, in the history of the ACC as it celebrates 60 years as a conference. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at the ACCDN and give us your comments, your questions, and your concerns. And we want you to get involved in that as well. There are other reminders we want to tell you about. We invite you to subscribe to the ACC Digital YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/ACC Digital Network. So you can connect with us there on Twitter. And also a reminder about the ACC Kickoff Live Show, 11 a.m. on Saturday during the college football season. And you can hear from Riley Skinner. There will certainly be more talk about Notre Dame joining the conference. Dorsey Levens will be here, Jeff Fischel hosting, and also Kelly Nash. So you can catch up with all of them as we talk about Notre Dame joining the conference in all sports except football, where they have the unique partnership with those 5 conference games, and that'll be decided on down the road. So again, the news of the day, Notre Dame will be joining the Atlantic Coast Conference. It has been great to bring you this groundbreaking news conference and all the excitement of the live coverage as well. For Riley Skinner, I'm Tom Werme. You've been watching the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining us for this historic day in the Atlantic Coast Conference.